Hello and welcome to the next part of your training. Again, I'm Dominic, I'm a TL at VIPX, and I will be handling this part of your training today. In this video, we will be talking about what we can do to be prepared for class, or class preparation. So, without further ado, let's get started. Let's talk about time management. This is often something that is very difficult for a lot of online teachers to cope with, especially at the beginning of their stint in a company. We ask you to start your class on time. All teachers are required to start their lessons on time. The students pay for a 40-minute lesson. They pay for it to start at a certain time. They expect it to start then. Even if the student isn't there, we must be professional and start it at exactly the time that they wish it to start. Each class must start at that time. Non-negotiable. Teachers should be in class a minimum of 2 minutes before the designated start time for a prompt start. Now for me, I prefer to enter the FC classroom five minutes before class starts. This helps me check all my tech one last time, just to make sure everything's working okay. Get the material ready to go, click start. I turn off my camera, I turn off my microphone, and I wait for the class time to start, or to count down. You can also do the same thing. That way you can make sure that everything is in working condition, or good working condition, before the class starts. If it isn't, you still have time to ask the admins to assist you, so it doesn't affect your student when they enter the classroom. Next part is equally as important, if not more so. End your class at the 40-minute mark. All classes must be completed by the 40-minute mark. So let's say your class starts at 6 o'clock. Your class will end at 6:40. You have to end it at 6:40. No teacher is allowed to end a class early under any circumstance. The teacher should use class management techniques to ensure the client receives a full 40-minute class. So if you finish the material early, do not end the class. Bring in other activities or other topics of discussion that you can talk about for the remainder of the lesson. Just because the material is finished doesn't mean the class is finished. Make sure you finish the full 40 minutes. Secondly, let's say you decide to start your class early. You start your class at 5:55 instead of 6 o'clock. You start at 5 minutes earlier. It doesn't mean that you can end at 6:35. You must still end at 6:40. By all means, you can start the class early, but you are giving the student extra time. You still have to end at the 40-minute mark, at the time in your portal that says when it should end. Make sure you check those details. Under no circumstance are you allowed to exit the class before the designated finish time listed in your portal. Make sure you double check that. It's very important. If the teacher ends the class out of the designated end time, this must not affect the following class. Let's say you want to extend, you want to help the student to finish all the materials before the end of class. You want to extend by 2 minutes or 3 minutes, that's perfectly fine. You can extend, but make sure that you don't extend so much that you are late for your next class. Always give yourself time to exit the classroom, then enter the next classroom. Sometimes FC can take a while to load, so always keep that in consideration when you are going into your next class. You can extend, but don't let it affect your subsequent classes. Alright, so that's time management. Start each class on time. Very important. You can start early if you like, but again, you must end at the time that is specified in your portal for that student. Alright, moving on. Now let's talk about equipment once again. We've already been through this in an earlier video, but let's reiterate this. It's very important. Before class, you must do an equipment check. This includes your PC. Make sure your PC is working properly, okay? Let's say your screen is broken. How are you going to use that PC if your screen is broken? You know, check that stuff before you start class. Or your adapter for your laptop is not working, so you're running on battery. Eventually it will drain. So make sure that you're aware of these things and you have a backup plan just in case it happens. Check your mic, check your headset, check your webcam. Make sure everything's in good working order, because if even just one of these things is not working properly, it will affect your ability to handle class and the student's class experience. Make sure that these are all in order. Your internet connection is very, very important and very basic. Very basic. To be online teachers, we need to have a stable internet connection. Not necessarily the fastest, but at least stable. Stable enough to handle FC. Make sure it's in good working condition. Make sure it's stable. And if not, connect your Ethernet cable to your laptop, change your DNS, do all of these things, or reset your router, restart your PC, change to another network, use your hotspot. Come up with a backup plan for these scenarios where your internet is not working properly. Because if it does happen, you will need to use that backup plan. There's no choice about that. Your technology, your internet is your responsibility. Operating system updates. This is very important. I have some teachers in my team who have recently had problems with their FC, and in between classes they've decided to do a restart, but unfortunately they have installed updates in that restart. So something that should have taken only maximum a minute or two has turned out to be 30 minutes because their computer decided to do a feature update in the middle of class. So because of that, they affected their class and they weren't able to do it, and it affected their reliability with their students. Not only that, their team ACR was affected because they weren't able to have class. So make sure that you set your updates on your PC to install on the days that you are off, that you are not working. Now, we are all not working on Mondays, so perhaps you may want to set that time in your PC, go into your settings and choose the option in there to install updates on a certain day at a certain time. It will download and install automatically once your computer is switched on. So I would recommend doing that very strongly, because this is not an excuse that we accept for not being able to deliver a class. Before shift, teachers are all required to set their PC clocks. The clock in the bottom right hand part of the screen, you are required to set that to Beijing time zone, or UCT +8, I think. Please make sure that you set it to the Beijing time zone. Why? Because if you don't, your computer will not synchronize with the FC servers. So the timer in the top left hand corner of FC will not synchronize with your computer's time, meaning you will see a different timer countdown. You will not be able to exactly measure how much time you have in class. That timer is very, very important because it lets us know how much time we have until we need to start class if you enter early, and during class how much time we have already gone through once we've started class. So make sure you set your PC clock to Beijing time zone, or you will have massive problems with time management. There have been teachers who have not done it in the past and have either been under time by at least 10 minutes or overtime by 20. So make sure that you set your PC clock to Beijing time zone so you can maximize, or you can utilize that timer as effectively as you can and have perfect time management. And the last one, as I've mentioned many times in this page, prepare a backup plan. Things happen. Technology can just die for whatever reason. It's old, or it did not win the Silicon Lottery. The hardware that came out of the manufacturers was not 100%, it was not A grade, so it may just die because of that. Your internet connection may just drop. It happens all the time. So make sure you have a backup plan. Where can you go in the case of a power outage? Do you have a backup generator in your house? I have a backup generator in mine because my building supplies one. If there's no internet, what can you use? I use my 4G hotspot because it's very stable and fast in my area. It may not be the same with you. So what other options do you have? Do you have an internet cafe nearby? Can you go to a relative's house nearby? Is there a coffee shop? Is there a cafe or a restaurant? Somewhere that you can go that can help you continue to do class. That's why we need you to make a backup plan. Not only to help us know what you will do, but also to concrete that plan in your mind. So it's easier for you to execute that if that situation happens. So those are the things that we need to do before class. Don't do this 5 minutes before. Try and get up 30 minutes before class so you can do a full comprehensive check just to make sure everything's operating properly. Moving on to the next page. Now let's talk about some very, very important reminders about attendance. Number 1, attend your work shifts. That means you have to sign in when you said you would sign in, when you confirm that schedule. You have to sign in at the time you said you would sign in, even if you have a class or not, even if you have no classes. If you have a class, of course, even if you don't have any classes, you still have to sign in and be in front of your computer during the work shift. The admins and the TLs may require you to do extra work, such as on your first day, you most probably will not have classes, but you will be required to finish your to-do list, you'll be required to check materials, you'll be required to submit your backup plan to your TLs. So make sure you attend your work shifts. The TLs want to know that you are confident with the materials and that you know how to use the software and the different programs that we use to do class effectively. Also, it's a great time to ask your TL questions about things that you don't understand, because there may be many things. These training sessions there will be a lot of information in them, and it's going to be a lot to process. So when you get into your teams, you will have questions, and that first day is the perfect time to ask your TL and admins about that. Even your fellow teachers in your team will be very happy to help you. Be on time. If you do have a class, you need to be on time. Time management, again. Enter your class before the designated class time, I'd say at least 5 minutes, and end on time. End at the time it says in your portal. Sign in and out of your team group. Do not sign out in your staff room. Do not sign out in your training group. Do not sign out in your new teacher support group. Sign in and out in your team group. You will notice that because it will either say for Reach teachers, Reach Team 1, Team 2, Team 3, Team 4. For HE, it will be HE1, HE Team 2, HE Team 3, HE Team 4. You will see that in your Ding Talk. You will only see one of the teams because you will only need to see one team. You won't be part of all the teams. Log onto your portal and FC at least 3 minutes before your class. I would say do that a bit earlier. I do that at least 30 minutes just to make sure I'm prepared for the whole day. I'm prepared I know which classes I'm doing. I know which materials I have to prepare for. Log on as early as you can. Don't leave it to the last minute. Be in front of your computer during shift. At times, admins may ask you to do a subclass. You need to be in front of your computer, at least in a close proximity to your computer. If you're within your house, I would recommend having Ding Talk installed in your cell phone, your smartphone. That way you can take it with you to another room if you're not in front of your computer, and you will still receive the dings here, and you'll still be able to rush back to your computer if you see that request. What I do is, because I live in a small apartment, I just unplug my headset and I can hear the ding all throughout my house. If that's the same for you, go ahead and do that. But make sure that as soon as you see or hear that message come in, you rush back and you check that message, because the admins may be giving you a subclass. Failure to respond to an admin or a TL for a subclass, or failure to do the subclass because you never responded or saw the message from the TL or from the admin, will be your fault. It's your responsibility to be in front of your computer. It's your responsibility to check your messages. Make sure you do that. Number 6, teachers are considered absent for the time period if they don't respond to messages from TLs and admins within 20 minutes during shift times. So if your TL or admin messages you and you don't check the message, or you check the message but you don't respond, you will be marked absent after 20 minutes. Make sure that Even if you check the message, even if you're doing what they asked you to do, but you never respond, make sure you respond. They need to have that confirmation that you understand. Just reading the message is not enough. Respond to your TL and admins, or you will be marked absent for that period, for that block of time. Very important that you respond. Number 7, equally as important as starting a class early, never end a class early. Teachers are expected to teach until their scheduled ending time. That will be in the student's information in the portal. Make sure you check that. Failure to do any of these things will result in penalization and possible warning. It's very important that you follow these procedures, these rules. They're very, very important for our students and for our own peace of mind as TLs and admins, just to make sure that you're communicating properly with us. Please always respond to messages. So these are some attendance reminders. Let's move on to things we should be doing during class. Okay, so each grade has 3 different levels of the lesson to match the student's ability. These are some suggestions on a prepared class. Number 1, be familiar with all levels of the lesson for that week. Okay, so for Reach you have 4 lessons. Make sure that you are aware of all these lessons and what they entail. For HE you have 7 different lessons for the week. So make sure that you check each of those lessons. On top of those EC lessons, those 7 EC lessons, you need to be familiar with the lesson for the regular classes for that week, because there may be a time that you are called to substitute the regular class of a veteran teacher for whatever reason. So make sure that you are familiar with all levels of the lesson for that week. Prepare props suitable for the lesson. Some students respond really well to props, some don't. But it's always good to have some on hand just in case you need them. Some good props are vocabulary props, so like flashcards and picture dictionaries. These are great. Show and tell items, objects related to the lesson. So make sure that you read the lesson plan. The lesson plan will have a list of objects there that you could bring to class, but most importantly, it will tell you the topic of the lesson so that you can bring your own materials to class based on your own ideas, should you wish to. Prepare extra games and activities. At times, students can get bored with the materials. Now, I'm not talking about just bringing in any old game and bring it into class and playing it with your student. No, you have to match it to the topic of the lesson. So for instance, you're talking about camping and the student's bored with the lesson material. They're not responding well to that. You have the option of switching it out and bringing in something fun to infuse that vocabulary into class, to help them learn those lessons, to help them learn the sentence patterns based on those games. Now you have that option of doing that as well. We are all communicative teachers and we must learn while playing, or help them to learn while playing, while having fun. So if you see that they're not responding well to the material, bring in something extra that will help them become a little more excited, and then return to the material and use it as a reward for finishing the material. Prepare extension questions for sections that are covered or completed quickly. At times there are sections that aren't so in-depth. They're very much taken at the face value and can be completed in about 10 or 15 seconds. That's if you don't ask extension questions. Make sure that you go through the material beforehand and write down a list of questions for each page, because it is possible to do that, especially for those pages which you think are very short and very easy to complete, to help them draw it out a little bit more, to bog the student down a little bit so they don't blaze through the material so quickly. Number 5, explanations suitable for low-level learners. At times we have students that have a very low comprehension level. Great speakers, but have difficulty understanding certain concepts. So at times these vocabulary, or the vocabulary explanations that we have, will confuse them even more. This is where TPR is great. Bringing in props, bringing in realia will really help to get that message across to them. When words fail, use actions, use objects, because that's how we are as communicative teachers. That's our responsibility to the students. If the student doesn't understand, don't just move on. Help them understand. Take as much time as you need to help them understand that concept, because most likely if you move on, and the future pages require them understanding that concept, the whole lesson will be a mess for them. So make sure you help them understand using different methods. And finally, extra activities for high-level learners. Now, no matter how many extension questions we have, no matter how many times we ask them questions and get them to express themselves, they just blaze through the material. So we need to bring in extra activities for when they finish the lesson ahead of time. You have to plan for that. So make sure that you have activities uploaded for students who finish the lesson super quickly. With my students, they love playing Hangman. So at the end of the lesson, we will play Hangman, and I always use the words that we learned in the lesson. We always recap the vocabulary using the words that we learned. The students also, they remember the words and they give me the clues for that, so I have to guess their words. You can also do that. Bring in another game. Depends on what your students like. All my students love Hangman. It may not be the same for yours. So know your student and know what they like. This is very important because you can ask them about this at the start of class, especially for EC students. Build rapport and know your student. Just because it's your first lesson doesn't mean that it's an excuse to not know what they like. Spend some time getting to know them, and then you'll be able to understand what games they will like if they finish quickly. So that's what we should do during class. Now let's go over unprofessional behaviors once again. So unprofessional behaviors will not be tolerated in any circumstance. Okay, these will result, okay, not possibly, but will result in warnings and potentially termination depending on the severity of the issue. Number one, no eating. I let my students eat in class. The poor kids have been studying all day from 7 a.m. all the way up to 4 p.m. They come home, they have a shower, they do homework, and then they come to class with me. They have no time to eat. And the poor things are sitting there eating their cup of noodles. I let them eat because it's very important that they are nourished or they are happy during class. But that doesn't mean that we should also eat. It's not a picnic. It's not a dinner party. It's class. They hire us to have class with them, not to eat with them. So make sure that you don't eat with them. Make sure that you allow them to eat if they need to, but you don't have to do what they're doing. Okay? If they jump off a cliff, we don't follow them. No yawning. This is a basic human need, but it can be taken as a sign that we're not interested in the class. Not only that, it's very rude to show people the insides of your mouth. You know, so make sure that if you do need to yawn, go off cam, yawn, and then come back and apologize, or figure out a way to cover it up. What I like to do is I like to pretend that I'm scratching my upper lip, and of course I keep my eyes in the same position and I just have a good yawn. Other teachers have mastered controlling their facial muscles and just keep the yawn at the back of their throat. So they'll keep their mouth closed and yawn inside. So perhaps one day, or if you've already mastered that, you can use that as well while the student is talking. No swearing. I have a lot of students who like to swear in class. They like to show off the first words they learned. Let's face it, whenever we learn a new language, some of the first words we learn are the swear words. So they're very proud to showcase their ability to swear. Especially as the reaction we give them is often, you know, exactly what they're looking for. So just because a student is swearing doesn't mean that we can go ahead and swear as well. Try and keep, if you have anger issues, try and keep your anger under control and not swear. That will also help. But yeah, baseline, no swearing. Okay. No religious praise or blessings. This is because in Chinese culture they are predominantly non-secular. So they have no religion, and these praises and blessings make them feel very, very uncomfortable. So please keep them to yourselves or keep them to your friends and family, but don't bring them into class. Unprofessional location: bed, couch, kitchen, toilet, bathroom, shower, outside, in a noisy area. Make sure you always do class in your pre-approved work area. If you're moving to another location because you're going on holiday, take your poster with you, or let your TL and admin know that you will not be teaching in your pre-approved work area. This is very important, so the admins and the TLs know that you're not there, so they will not mark you down for not being in your professional work area. Make sure that the material you use is the correct material. Always check your portal before class. Your portal is always right. Make sure you check your portal and cross-reference that with the material uploaded in FC. That's why it's important to enter early, so you can check the material and make sure it's the right one. Do not use or do not continue using the lesson material if it's the wrong lesson material. If it's the wrong one, upload the HTML link for that lesson into FC and do the lesson using that material. Do not continue with the lesson using the wrong material. If you know it's wrong, even if you don't know it's wrong, make sure you check. Always be in the know. Check. Make sure your background is suitable. Okay, make sure you're in a nice area. Make sure it's well lit. Make sure there's nothing unprofessional in your work area. Make sure it's not a busy thoroughfare where lots of people walk past and distract the student. Make sure it's suitable. Make sure that you don't start late. They're very, very focused on starting their class when they say they will, when they've paid for their class time. Even if the student shows up late, we need to start on time because we have paid, we are being paid by them for that 40-minute block. So even if they're late, they still are paying for that full class. So if we show up late and the student still isn't there, we think, fine, that's okay. But that's not the case, because even if they're late, they're still paying us to be there for that 40 minutes. So make sure that you start on time. Never start late, because they will not get their full money's worth for the class. And under time. Under time is very serious, because we cannot give the student back those minutes that they've lost. Make sure you end the class exactly when the class says it will end in your portal. If it says you end at 6:40, do not end at 6:39. End at 6:40 or a little bit past. Do not end early. It's a basic sign of courtesy and respect for the students' time and for the trust that they're putting in us to deliver classes for them. So these are some unprofessional behaviors that will not be tolerated at all. Alright, now after class, the last thing that we have to do after class is finished is feedback. Because technically, class is not finished until feedback is finished. Feedback is required for each class. Now, you've all been through feedback in your professional training. I won't go into too much detail about this now, but feel free to ask more questions about this later. But yes, feedback is required for each class. Feedback must be submitted within 24 hours of the class. This is very important. If you do not submit your feedback within 24 hours, or if you submit it past, you will not be paid your teaching hourly rate for that class. You will be considered absent for that class. So you will basically have given that class for free. So make sure you complete the feedback within 24 hours. What I do is, I don't have time to do my feedback between classes, so I wait till after all my classes are finished at the end of the night. I know it's extra time, but we need to do this. The earlier you get it done, the better. So feedback is not easy to do. It usually takes about 10 to 15 minutes per student. Why? Because it needs to be detailed. We need to give them corrections. And when I say corrections, I don't just mean pronunciation. We also need to think about their grammar. Listen to how they're constructing their sentences. Write down what they said, and then write down the right way of saying that if they make a grammatical error. We also need to help them with vocabulary. There will be some words that they won't understand during class, so make sure that you give them these words to practice in their free time. It needs to be specific. Make sure that your feedback is specific for that lesson. Don't just say something like, you did very well today. I really enjoyed having class with you. Your skills are improving so much. You're wonderful. That's very nice, but it's not specific. Match it to the lesson. Today we talked about camping. I was really interested to hear that you've never been camping before. I hope that you can go camping one day, and when I go to China, perhaps we can do that together. Something like that. Be specific. Match each part of the feedback to what they did in the lesson. For instance, when you're giving them praise about good things, don't just say, you were wonderful today, keep up the great work. Tell them which areas they were good in. Your vocabulary was perfect. You understood all the words. Your pronunciation is getting better and better. You had fewer words to practice today, so keep up the great work. Same with corrections. Match your description about the corrections with what you've left them. If they've got more grammar to study, ask them to focus on that grammar for the week. You had a lot of difficulty making full complete sentences this week. Please practice the corrections I've left for you, because they will really help you create full complete sentences in the future. And the last part, they must be individualized to the student. Use their name. Do not copy and paste feedback from one student to the next. Each student has a unique and individualized learning experience, thus their feedback needs to be the same. Feedback should be no more than 1,000 words per textbook. So you're giving them feedback, you're not writing a dissertation. Make sure you keep it detailed, but not over the top. If you can consider all of these things in your feedback, you will have excellent feedback from your students about your class. And that's it for feedback. Now, for the last part, we will talk about failed classes. A failed class is any class that cannot be completed due to something that is affecting the teacher from their end. Okay, any teacher that has a failed class will not be paid for the class, and if it happens too often, warnings will be issued. These are very basic things that we need to meet. These are part of our basic responsibilities. If we cannot meet them, then we are not doing our jobs properly. So let's start with number one, internet connectivity, basic. I don't need to go into too much detail about this. This is very important. Make sure your internet is stable. If you cannot deliver a stable class because of your internet, you'll be labeled as an unreliable teacher, and the company will suffer because of that, because it will affect the image not only of yourself, but of the company to the students. Teaching equipment, this is all in our control. Webcam, headset, PC, all of these things are very, very important and in our control. Make sure that you have responsibility over your technology. Wrong lesson delivered. It's the teacher's responsibility to make sure that the lesson in the portal matches the lesson in FC. If not, upload the right HTML links to deliver the right lesson for the student. If the student says it's not the right lesson, make sure that you listen to them and inform your admins about it. Your admins will probably tell you to change the lesson using the HTML links anyway, but always update your admins. Late. Failure to start class on time. Automatic failed lesson. Most likely, even if we extend, the student will ask to do that class again, and it's within their right because it did not start when they paid the company to provide a class to them. Under time, ending class early, before the designated end time in the portal, of course, will be a make-up class because it did not end exactly when it said it would end in the portal, even if you started early. Last one, unsubmitted feedback is automatic failure of class after 24 hours of not having received feedback. So make sure that you consider all of these things. Make sure you are in control of your technology. You're in control of your internet. That you are in control of the lesson and everything happening for class. Because that way, you will not ever have a failed class. And if it does happen, it will not be taken against you because you are known as a reliable teacher. And it's a one-time thing. So make sure that you are in control of everything, that everything you have is in good working condition, and you will have perfect classes. So that is the end of this training video. Thank you so much for sitting with me here today. It has been a very long video. You've all done very well, so thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video. See you then. Bye-bye.